Whose stock are you buying in the rotation this year?
Logan Gilbert's my guy. I'm a Kirby guy ahead of Gilbert career-wise. I think Kirby ends up having a better career. I think he's going to be a better pitcher. But right now, the guy I think could take a jump is Logan Gilbert. I think last year what we saw from the splitter, that's the biggest thing for me. That's the biggest thing. In the spring, I don't look at numbers in the spring. I know he had a couple of outings there in a row in the last couple of weeks where he gave up like 4 runs each or something. It just didn't look great. But it looks to me like he's keeping his front shoulder closed a little more, which could help, hide the ball a little bit, bring a little bit of that fastball value back. He's always thrown 95 plus, but throwing it in the zone when the hitter can see it, and gets a good look at it, they're still going to hit it a little bit. And I think that's the biggest reason why Kirby jumped him, because I think right now Logan Gilbert's secondary stuff is better, and the progress he made with that splitter last year, that could be a difference maker. That's a legitimate swing and miss pitch. And he proved that some last year. I think it's just going to be better this year. And I think Logan Gilbert, I talked about this on my show the other day. If you're looking to extend somebody, you're looking to guess who the next guy to get extended is, it should be Logan Gilbert, just because of where he is in his career, the arbitration status, the first of 4. He's a year older, he's a year deeper into it than Kirby. Cal Raleigh situations, kind of being a catcher and being a little older, that's really tough to commit to a catcher beyond 30 at $20+ million a year. The easy one is Logan Gilbert. But if you wait, if you're the team and you wait because he won't engage or would rather wait because he's really feeling it, it's just going to cost you more money, because he could throw up a 5.5 win season this year. I think I'd be less surprised if Gilbert threw up a 5.5 win season and was a top 3 Cy Young finisher. I'd be less surprised at that than Julio being a top 3 MVP guy again this year. I'd be less surprised at that. Yeah.
So you're really buying stock. And I love that, because everybody kind of looks at the rotation right now as they've got a really good starting 3, but I think people look at it as Castillo and Kirby and then Gilbert, where like Castillo and Kirby are really good, Castillo and Kirby are great. Logan Gilbert's really good, but you're saying like, okay, Logan Gilbert can get into the Castillo Kirby conversation this year. Like all 3 of those guys can finish top 7, 8 in Cy Young voting.
I think for 2024, at least where I sit right now, he's the guy with the most upside of those 3 in 2024. I think ultimately it's George Kirby, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's this year. I think Gilbert's just in a spot in his career with the development of that splitter last year, where I think he just takes a bigger step this year and is at least a win and a half better than he was. He was pretty inconsistent last year. I would totally understand if it was Kirby, Castillo, Gilbert again this year, that wouldn't surprise me, because that's the order it was last year. It was basically, Kirby and Castillo were great, and Gilbert was really good. And that wouldn't surprise me again, because he probably has the most risk of those 2 from a performance standpoint. I just think he's going to turn a corner that we just haven't seen on a consistent basis yet. I think he's going to have fewer outings where it's 4 1/3, 4 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. I think he's going to have fewer of those outings, because if you go take out all 3 of those starters, like worst 5 starts, Gilbert probably has the better numbers, because his 5 worst starts were bad. And I think Castillo's worst 5 starts were probably second worst. Kirby just had so few of them, like he probably only had 3 or 4 of them, and the other 2 had at least 5 where they gave up 4 or 5 runs in 4 innings. I just think Gilbert's the guy ready to take the next step. I think Castillo is what he is. But he's a guy who, and you guys remember this, when they made that trade, it was like, oh, the guy with the great changeup, and we haven't seen it, right? We really haven't seen it. But that's a pitch that comes and goes, right? Like you've talked to guys, it's a feel pitch. The splitter can come and go sometimes. The changeup can come and go sometimes. Sometimes it's at bat to at bat. Sometimes it's inning to inning, game to game, season to season. What if Castillo just finds a way to feel that changeup a little more, changes the grip on it or something, and or does something different with it, and all of a sudden he's a 4-pitch guy again? Because when he's at his very, very best, his very most dominant, I would say anyway, where the strikeouts are up, he's got 3 pitches, and he could be a guy who has 4 above average pitches led by both of those fastballs. So you can't sleep on any of them. They could all be 5-win guys, but I just think Gilbert's the guy that's primed to take the biggest step forward this year.
Is that splitter the best off speed in that rotation?
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, I think so. They all have good fastballs. Castillo has 2 good ones. Kirby has 2 good ones. Gilbert's got the best secondary stuff of all 3 of them, though. I think everybody would agree with that, even though the 2 breaking balls not consistent. But now that he's got the splitter in there, he's got the most complete arsenal and at least as good a control as the other two. Kirby's more of a command guy who can put it where he wants, and that's where tons of his value comes from. But yeah, that's a good point. It's probably the best off-speed pitch in that rotation, at least right now. Maybe Miller has something we haven't seen. Maybe his splitter develops too. But Brian Wu wasn't going to have it. That was my biggest question with him coming into the year. Does he have something that isn't 95 and moving left to right, that he can show a hitter and not get shelled by good lineups? And I don't think we saw that in the spring. We certainly didn't see it last year. So yeah, we'll see. That's interesting. You could probably ask the same question about the bullpen. Who's got the best with Brash and Soto out? Is it the Munoz slider? Is it by far the Munoz slider? Or does Stanek splitter come into play here?
What about Stanek's slider?
Yeah, he's got two. Yeah.
Well, so we started to dive in on some Ryan Stanek stuff, and tell us what you think about this. So, like, the stuff plus on his slider is nuts. Now, it didn't get good results last year, but the pure stuff of it's good. I have a take out there that I put out on a couple podcasts since they signed him and said, don't be shocked, people, if the Mariners tap into Ryan Stanek's slider this year and it looks really good again, because like the stuff's there. He just wasn't throwing it in the right spots. The Mariners are great at figuring that out with guys. Like, could it be Stanek's slider? Maybe.
It could be. Absolutely. And the same thing with relievers, with the volatility of their overall performance and their health comes with certain pitches too. Mm-hmm. There are some guys who avoid it, like Matt Brash, just because he's just so easy for him to spin the two breaking balls. You just assume that it's just going to be about, locating the pitch. Like he's always going to be able to get the high spin out of it in a late break. But yeah, Stanek's got like a couple of years ago, he wasn't as good last year overall as he was in 2022. But when you look at the results on his splitter, they can't lift it. They hit the ball on the ground a lot. They swing and miss at it like 47% of the time last year. So what if he has both pitches? What if he has the 2022 slider and the 2022, 2023 splitter to go with, 98? I mean, doesn't that sound like one of the better relievers in the American League?
Yeah.
It's strange. And I know he doesn't pound the strike zone like some of the other Mariners guys have. He's a little more like Matt Brass than he is like a Gabe Spire last year. He just barely walked anybody. But it's not like he's walking the world either. And a couple of years ago, I think he only gave up, was it 2 home runs all year?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was 2.
In Houston?
Yeah.
Like that's pretty remarkable. And so yeah, he's got 2 pitches that might end up being actually the best pitch in that bullpen. But did you guys get a look at Vargas when you were down in Arizona?
No.
Not much.
Not really.
Yeah. So if he threw 10 sliders, cutter sliders, whatever, they're 158 miles an hour, but oh, you guys didn't hear he throws 200 miles an hour with 158 mile an hour side. That's what it feels like with standing behind the catcher. He was like 96 to 100, and it was pretty easy session. And when he throws that slider, I think he threw a couple at 89 early, and then they were 92, 93, 94. I think he threw a 95 mile an hour slider. I wanted to ask the catcher, but he got up and ran away. That's ridiculous. That's why I think StatCast called it a cutter last year. Mm-hmm. It's thrown so hard. But there was a couple of them that were clearly sliders. There's depth to it. There's 2 plane break. If he can throw strikes with his fastball, I mean, it's Andres Munoz. It's the same idea with more fastball value too. It's a different fastball than Munoz's fastball, better shape. So just if they can teach him to throw strikes, I'm glad they sent him down. They optioned him down. He's got stuff to work on. Mm-hmm. But man, you imagine that guy throwing, even if you just walk at 9-10% of the guys like Brass did last year, that's all you need. Just don't fall behind. Don't walk the bases loaded. Don't walk in runs. Be able to find it. Be able to grind through it. And they teach him to do that. And all of a sudden you have Stanek, you have Vargas, you have maybe Santos, maybe Brash. But even if you don't, you still have 3 guys at the back that can get anyone out in any situation. Yeah, all of a sudden that deal they made with Arizona looks a little bit better if you can get something decent out of Carlos Vargas later in the year.